Dedicated to geeks and nerds, you're listening to Project I Radio, 24/7 Nerdgasm.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the bizarre and weird fiction podcast. With me, your host, Mr. Frank Zongers. Thank you very much for your patience this week on our delayed episode. But life goes on, and we carry forth. This week, we have for you an author that you may not recognize his name, but he's been somebody I'm aware of for quite some time now. He's most notably known for, if you know him at all, he's the guy that started this little press called Jersey Devil Press. And what's important about that was Jersey Devil Press published Danger Slater's first book, Love Me. So our guest this week, Mr. Eirik Gumney, is actually the guy who is responsible for the powerhouse that is Danger Slater in the bizarro fiction realms. But Eirik Gumney also writes his own stuff. And not long after I discovered Danger and gathered an appreciation for what Danger's doing, I sought out more books from Jersey Devil Press. And I read a book by Eirik Gumney, and he co-wrote with a pal of his, called Screw the Universe, which was just this very farcical, fun book. It was like a set of flash fiction sort of stories that were loosely connected with one another, like a crazy Star Trek Saturday Night Live skit kind of fucking show. And it was really fun. And, I checked out some of his other work, and then he kind of fell off the radar. As it turns out, Mr. Gumney had a very compelling story, because he had cystic fibrosis, and he was in desperate need of a lung transplant to get himself better. So he did kind of fall off the radar for a little while, but he got that lung transplant. He's doing much better nowadays, and he's been writing a series called the Exponential Apocalypse series, which is very much in the vein of Screw the Universe. He's just tightening up, honing his skills, and getting better and better at what he's doing. So what we really need to do now is we all need to listen to and find out and check out Eirik Gumney, because he has a surprisingly hefty catalog, but I don't know. He just doesn't seem to have a lot of awareness that he's out there. So check out Mr. Eirik Gumney on Bizzong this week. I'd like to welcome to Bizzong this week a writer that has been on my radar for a long time, but I just don't really know a lot about him. So I wanted to bring him on the podcast, and we'll all learn together. So please welcome to Bizzong this week, Mr. Eirik Gumney. Eirik, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks.
First of all, did I pronounce your last name correct?
Yes, actually you did. Yeah.
Oh, great. I think the first thing I want to ask you is, do you consider yourself like a bizarro writer?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the Exponential Apocalypse books, at least, they're pretty firmly into bizarro. So yeah, I'd say so.
The first thing I actually read by you was Screw the Universe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I guess that's pretty old school, all things considered. And that was definitely, it had that bizarro feel. And it also has the very same feel, like you said, for the Exponential Apocalypse, which I just started reading. And you're heavily based in humor, I guess, is where you approach your work from?
Yeah, that would be right.
Is that all of your work, or does your work take on different tones?
Lately it's been mostly humor. I'd say for a while it was 50-50 between humor and like literary fiction, getting over old girlfriends and writing really depressing short stories and stuff. But that's all kind of gone out the window, so it's mostly humor now.
All back to humor. I like that. That's usually my approach when I write. Is
yeah.
No matter how hard I try, I got to crack a joke.
Yeah.
You're also published in on cracked.com.
Yes, yeah, I did. I have wrote an article for them a while ago. I'm working on another one now, but it's taken forever. But
How difficult is that to get onto their publication?
well, the first article was about the lung transplant, so that one went pretty quickly. It still took a few months to get up, but they just asked some questions. I wrote the article up, and that was it. Uh, the actual pitch process for something that isn't like a personal story, that I've been working on one for at least a year at this point. They had it all approved. It went into a meeting, and then they like told me to restart from scratch with a different topic. So it can be a process. I'll let you know if this thing ever goes through. You know what the final verdict is. But
How long have you been working on it?
this new since they switched it, probably about 6 months, give or take. I haven't been putting as much effort into it after they pulled the rug out from me.
Wow.
So
And
it's taken a while. Yeah.
what size a piece is it?
It's not that long. I mean, if you've read the website, it's just like a list of like 6 or 7 things they want at first, and then you would write it after they approve it, and it's not more than like 2,000 words total, I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 months seems a lot to work on for
Mostly, it's
typical.
just getting them to approve the actual topics. Like they'll give you they'll be okay. The overall theme for this one that I'm working on is what the hell was it? It's insignificant things that shaped American history. So I was working on that, and look, that's cool. But then getting the actual 6 points just takes a lot, either because they've already covered it, or they don't like it, or they don't think it fits, or and it's just a lot of as any editorial is, just whoever you get at the moment either likes it or doesn't, and it can change depending on who you're talking to.
So what's the benefit to you for pursuing this thing for so long? This seemingly short piece of work.
Well, I mean, it's not super research intensive. Like I can do it like an hour or two a night, like run through, try to find something, update it to their forum, and then might sit there until somebody looks at it. They might okay it immediately, and then I can move on to the next piece of it or whatever. So there's not like a deadline, which is nice. So you can kind of take your time with it. And they do have a huge audience. Just with the one article that did go up, I mean, that got seen by thousands of people, which is probably the biggest audience I've ever had that I know of anyway.
Did you find that brought a bump to your other online sales?
Not directly. I mean, I did notice a lot of people who were in similar situations actually reached out to me. So that was nice, but they didn't include any links to my books in the correct article.
Well, let's jump into that. You had mentioned you had a lung transplant. You had a pretty serious health issue there for a while.
Yeah.
And that was what your initial cracked article was about. What was that in relation to your writing? Like, what was that? It's an odd phrasing.
Yeah.
How did your health issue affect your writing?
Well, it's part of the reason I think I really wrote a lot, because I couldn't, as it got worse, like I had cystic fibrosis since, I mean, I've had it since I was born. They diagnosed me at 3, but until high school, I was actually pretty healthy. I ran track for a while. But then in high school, you start, you're a punk ass teenager. So you don't do what you're supposed to. You don't take care of yourself. And then if you have cystic fibrosis, that's a terrible idea. It gets a lot worse, but you're 16 and you're not really thinking about it. So then, after that, it started to slowly get worse until obviously the transplant 2 years ago. But I couldn't do a whole lot of physical stuff. So kind of sitting on my computer and writing was, I mean, I enjoyed it anyway, but I think not being able to do a whole lot definitely drove me to the computer. So it was kind of helpful that I enjoyed writing, because otherwise that might have been a problem. But as far, I would say that's probably the most direct correlation between the two.
Is that it kind of forced you to start writing?
Yeah, definitely write more seriously. Because I mean, I went to college. I failed out of a tech school. I actually NJIT. I failed out of that, and I ended up I just fell into writing, a creative writing degree, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. Didn't think about it. But then, yeah, as you're sitting there and I'm getting, winded running. Like, can't really run, you can't really walk, do a whole lot of outside stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it just, I would have more time, so I would sit and write longer pieces and longer stories. And I just looked into the online communities for writing, literary journals and stuff like that. So that's probably all came about just because I didn't have anything else to do.
And in what ways did dealing with waiting for the transplant and your surgeries and everything, what effect did that have on your writing directly?
The transplant and the writing directly, I was a fucking mess at that point. I mean, I couldn't walk from like the couch to the bathroom. So I would just kind of camp out at the computer. And I know High Voltage, I was actually writing during that time. And I think I just wrote it really quickly because of that. There was just to give yourself some sense of purpose during that time. I just felt like I had to be doing something. So I really made sure to hammer out that book and get it done. And then the Cracked article came along because I was reading a lot of Cracked at the time because I was on my computer all the time. They had the call for personal experiences, and I hadn't seen anything about transplants, so I reached out to them for that. And it was writing that article in particular was actually pretty cathartic, just because it laid out a lot of things that I hadn't been able to put into words, I guess, at that point.
And your writing itself, I mentioned, it's always a humorous tone to it. How did you maintain that humor in the face of what you were facing?
Well, it's really the only way you can. I mean, like, it's fucking brutal. It's hard. And I went back and forth between feeling okay about it and like super depressed. And so, yeah, writing, like, I don't know how to write without being funny, I guess. I've had, office jobs, and I have a very hard time writing in a professional manner. So I think that was definitely, it's just part of my writing style, but also you just kind of have to spin it so that you don't get lost in it. And I guess humor is just how I did that.
The best way to keep your chin up?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know I know other people who've been going through transplants or going through them now. One girl in particular does a lot of like advocacy. That's how she spins it. And that's just not, I mean, I'm nothing against it, but that's not really how I view it because I get very angry or I get very darkly humorous about things. I make dark jokes, and that doesn't always work as far as a larger scale audience. If you're trying to cheer up a bunch of, people with waiting for transplants, they don't always appreciate the really bleak, dark humor.
Yeah. Sometimes that could be a tough sell.
Yeah.
I imagine. So where are you now in your health issues?
I'm doing great right now. I had a checkup not that long ago. My lung function is at 75%, which is, for healthy, normal people, that's a little low, but for me, that's kind of unbelievable. I haven't been at 75% since I was like 12 or 13, I don't think. So I feel great. I mean, I was actually hiking earlier today. That's part, and I got stuck in traffic, and it's a little part of the reason I was a little bit late getting back to you. But so yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot more than I ever have, at least since eighth grade or something like that.
That's fantastic news.
Yeah.
Is that do you find like you're actually writing a little less now because you can get out and enjoy life?
Yeah. I mean, I it's true. I finished the last book, Revengeroni, and I mean that took for fucking ever compared to the other ones, partly because of that. And yeah, now I'm not working on anything at the moment because I'm just like, well, I got all these other things I should go do, so let's go do them before the other shoe drops. Not that it's going to, but that's kind of how I'm viewing it. So
I don't think anybody would hold that against you. Certainly not. Now, let me ask you, when you first came on my radar, I had just discovered, really what happened was I was just kind of checking out and exploring, trying to get into the writing thing myself. And I'm from New Jersey, and
right.
I discovered Jersey Devil Press, and the first thing I read from them was Danger Slater's Love Me.
Okay, yeah.
And you're the second thing that I'm like, oh, wow, that was a great book, and this is like a really cool local kind of press thing. And like, it was pretty exciting, this Jersey Devil Press. So the second thing I picked up was Screw the Universe,
Okay.
and read your stuff. But I don't know, maybe. Well, let's start out with what's your connection with Jersey Devil Press, because you seem to have a lot of stuff going through them.
Yeah, I actually founded it in 2009. It was originally, so I used to have, let's go through the whole story. So I had a Zanga back in the day, an online blog, and I would occasionally write short stories and stuff, and I would just post them. And around 2009, I was like, well, this is getting kind of old. I should get rid of it. I'm going to write one last story, put it up there, call it a day. That turned into Exponential Apocalypse. It became a lot longer, a lot more in depth than I was planning. While I was writing it, I met the woman who would be my wife now. We started dating. So to kind of impress her, I told her I was writing a book, even though at the time it was just a short story. And then once I had the book, not entirely sure why, I started Jersey Devil Press partly to cover up that it was self-published, and then also to start as an online magazine for other similar stories like that. So I did all that, and I ran it for about 2 years, and then I handed it off, and they still put out my books, but I'm not really involved in the day-to-day at all anymore. It's on Laura Garrison is the editor now. She's like the third editor. So I didn't do it too much after. Actually, I published Love Me, and then I didn't do a whole lot after that.
That's really all you had to do. to say you're the guy who started Dangerous Later out. I mean, that's all you have to say. I love Dangerous Later.
Oh, I do too. It's
and
incredible. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just remember when he first sent me his first story was Snowpocalypse. Right when we had started, it was only a couple months old, Jersey Devil Press, and I just read that and I was like, I need to publish this. I need to meet this guy. This is fucking incredible.
Yeah, when I read Love Me, I was like, it was like a book I'd been waiting for my whole life. I didn't realize I needed, and it was great. So to have that come across your desk, that's just really impressive.
Yeah.
So you have Cracked, but you've also been doing a lot of these zines. I mean, Jersey Devil Press sort of functions as an online zine now, and you have other work. What do you get out of that exposure?
I don't know. I mean, for a while, I'm trying to think when the last thing I had published online was. I've been working on the book for so long. But out of that, I mean, that's just a lot of just getting it somewhere and feeling good that somebody agreed with you that it was worth publishing and putting it up there. I don't really, especially in the beginning, I didn't do it, to facilitate sales of the books or anything. I'm a little more cynical about that now, so I do try to publish something that will maybe lead people to the book. But yeah, I guess that was just something I did in the beginning to meet other writers, meet other writers online and just get the work out there.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I look through your body of work and you have a lot of stuff out there in many venues, but for some reason, after I had high voltage and you just seemed to fall off my radar for some reason until I noticed your new book in the Exponential Apocalypse came out. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. And I looked you up. I'm like, wow, you've been totally busy, but I'm wondering why you're off my radar, or how well the series and how well your career's been going for you. Maybe I'm just not in the same circles.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. When the transplant happened, while I was writing High Voltage, I did just kind of drop out of the world for a while. High Voltage came out; it did not sell at all. A lot, and in trying to get people to review the new book, I reached out to someone. She said she had no idea the third book even came out, even though she had read the first two and really liked them. So I think that's more on me. I did just kind of fall off the radar of everything, and then I went straight into the new book and didn't do a whole lot else in the meantime, really.
I see. So, and everything you have is more or less self-published, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a few chapbooks that went through other publishers. Then, obviously, I've been in a couple of anthologies. I was in two of the Tall Tales of Short Cocks books. But the actual novels, yeah, the EA novels are essentially self-published, even I do have like obviously I have the some of the people that work at JDP now. They'll take a look at them. They'll proof them and stuff. But yeah, I'm still kind of doing a lot of that.
I see. Do you think you would benefit from maybe shopping yourself around to some of these other bizarro and indie publishers?
Yeah, I've definitely been thinking about that. I don't know what the next book's going to be, or if but that was the plan. Is I'm gonna keep the EA books with Jersey Devil Press just because. And but yeah, I'll definitely whatever comes up next. I'm gonna try to get because I am terrible at marketing. Jersey Devil Press isn't that big, on the marketing front. We just don't do a lot. So yeah, I need to find some other people to help get the word out, and I could definitely take some of that off of my own shoulders would be great and just write. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I think that would help you because like I said, I started with Screw the Universe. I'm now reading the first book in Exponential Apocalypse, and you got that style. You have a very definitive sort of style. I don't know how to explain it. It's like these little vignettes. It's almost like a skit show that all works together, all threads together into this one big book, and it's so fun to read.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's because the first book, especially, I wrote it as a series of like interconnected short stories. I had no idea how to write a book at that point, so I think it's definitely more prevalent there. And Screw the Universe was similar because me and Steve Stregler, who also wrote that, we were just trading it back and forth in emails. Like we write a couple paragraphs, send it to the next guy, and we just kept sending it back and forth to finish that. So those two were definitely like that, and I think that's just because of that. That's how I learned how to write a book. So most of them do kind of. I write very short chapters. I try to keep it almost, I guess, kind of like a TV show. That's how I kind of see it in my head. So it's like scene, 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 and so that's kind of how I end up writing the book.
Yeah, and that's how it comes up, especially like you said with like Screw the Universe. You're trading back and forth. Everything was short and tight. It almost wasn't, a single solitary story. It was like little short pieces. They didn't all necessarily connect together directly. And reading Exponential Apocalypse now, it just seems like you honed and you tightened that particular style.
Yeah.
And really make it work as a book now. It's a lot more cohesive together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it still comes in those short blasts. Like I feel like I'm watching like Saturday Night Live skits, but they're all, it's like a live play that doesn't stop, commercial free.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun to read that way. And I don't think I really have seen that style at all from anybody else. It's really very unique to you. And that's why I wonder, like, you have a lot of work out, and it's like, wow, how is he not really getting talked about that much? We got to get you talked about. So that's why you're here on Bizzong, because we got to get you talked
thanks.
about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it is I'm not super active on social media, like, and I have a pile of bizarro books I got to read, so I haven't been maybe as involved as some other people. And the other part of it is that for the first couple of years, I was doing a lot of the literary stuff, and they do not look kindly on humor or bizarro. Not like, well, no, fuck it, they just don't.
Yeah,
so,
true.
I mean, I reached out to one guy to review the first book, and he's like, this isn't something we would ever fucking talk about. Like, we're a very serious magazine. We don't do that. And I'm like, well, you've published my other shit. Like, why not? And then he did eventually, and he was not super thrilled about it. But there's just a weird, they take themselves too seriously. At least they did. I'm kind of falling out of that as well right now. But I think that's part of the reason. So I didn't come up through the bizarro ranks necessarily. I was just doing my own thing, and I fell into it by accident. So I think that might be part of it.
Do you think you fell into the bizarre ranks because of your early association with Danger Slater, or do you think
Absolutely, because he's actually the one who first introduced me to bizarro. I didn't know it as a genre. I mean, I had obviously already written at least 2 of my books. I had put JDP out and published some of his stories. I knew what I liked. I knew I liked bizarro stories, but I didn't know it as the genre, as the term. And I met Danger to talk about Love Me, and he he asked me if I knew about Carlton Mellick III and the bizarro genre, and I was like, no, what the hell is that? Let me look this up. So yeah, it was a lot of that was him. He kind of guided me towards this the community.
Yeah, because that's almost why I was asking, like, why I'm not noticing you more. But I'm like thinking maybe you don't necessarily run in those circles. What do you find yourself when I say run in circles? I mean just like what you follow, as far as reading and writing stuff goes. Do you lean more towards literary for your own interests?
Not necessarily. The truth is, I'm kind of a terrible reader. I just do not read a lot. So I enjoy the Bizarro books. I've definitely, like I said, I've got a bunch. I've been meaning to read them. I've been meaning to read lots of stuff for a long time. Um, so I think that's just I'm kind of holding myself back there. Um, yeah, I mean, I would say I'm definitely a fan of Bizarro. I'm trying to think what I don't really. A lot of the literary stuff does kind of bore me sometimes, so I don't think that that's necessarily it at all. I just think it's my maybe reading like a book a month tops, which I should probably fix.
I'm a criminally slow reader,
Yeah.
and so I feel your pain. But I'm always reading. I just read slow. So I also have a bazillion Bizarro books to read. I just can't read that fast.
Yeah.
Outside of say Bizarro, like what do you like to read? Do you like to get into like humor books, or you?
Yeah, I mean, I've read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy like 1,000 times. So I read, I'm trying to think who. Like I said, I don't read a ton. I read a lot of books that like my friends write, and I enjoy them, but that does end up taking up all of my time. So I don't always read. Like I can't remember the last time I even bought a book that wasn't written by somebody I knew. Um, so that's part of it. And then if I do find I'll read a lot of magazines. Like I read like Wired. I'm on Cracked still a lot. Like I read weird little trivia things, stuff that isn't novels, not isn't books. And I think if I could better harness that time, I could probably catch up to where I should be. But I really have just this love for pointless trivia that I don't know how to stop.
I've noticed too, like with your own blog, as blogs go, you have a fairly active blog. So I think maybe you have a thing for those like magazine-y short little spurt article
yeah, I
type
think
of
so.
things. Is it do you find that your blog helps get you noticed, like you have a following there?
No, not really. I don't get a ton of views on that blog actually. I guess wrote maybe. Came up with this map for a Breaking Bad guided tour of
Right.
Albuquerque.
Yeah.
That hands down gets more people to my site, and like nobody goes anywhere else. They just read that, they get the map, they maybe say thanks, they take off. Nobody seems to jump from that into my books or anything.
So what's the is it because you're out in New Mexico now that you've done that Breaking Bad tour?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up I grew up in North Jersey, where they were filming Sopranos, and so I would see them filming that, and I never really cared. And then I was still living in Jersey when Breaking Bad started. I started watching it. My wife was from Albuquerque, so we moved back here, or she moved back here. I moved with her, and I don't know why, but yeah, suddenly like all the stuff in Breaking Bad was like in front of my face, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And so I did just drive around and look at it a lot, and then I just put it all up on the web. I forgot what your question was, but I think I answered it.
Basically that, but yeah. So maybe you need to do some more Breaking Bad blogs.
I know I'm gonna have to do something. I mean, Saul's filming. I think I can maybe string something together for that.
True, very true. It's funny. I could not get myself into Breaking Bad, but I love Better Call Saul, and I know that's like a detriment to myself because I don't know where these characters are going, and a lot of I think how that show plays out is you're supposed to know.
I think that's better actually. Yeah.
Do
I think
yeah.
that's the way to do it.
I know, like everybody talks about, oh, we already know where these characters are headed. I'm like, I don't. So
I think that's probably better because I do enjoy Better Call Saul as its own show, and sometimes I do kind of wish I hadn't seen Breaking Bad. And I mean, especially in Albuquerque, we're really involved in both of those shows. They're like huge for us.
right.
I was actually a background extra on Saul, so yeah, I'm like way too invested in those two. But I do think if you could separate them, Saul's a great show on its own.
Do you think you could write a sort of a noirish type of Saul book in your style?
I think I could. I think it could be done. I mean, I think it'd be pretty fun to at least try it.
That could be good because you sort of have like it's almost sci-fi feel to your stuff.
Mhm.
And but I think, especially reading Exponential Apocalypse, I could see you kind of tweaking it into a noir feel. That would be fun to explore.
Yeah, that would be cool. It's that's a good idea because, like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do next. So I'm trying to break away from the Exponential Apocalypse just for a little while. I got to finish out the series, but
Yes.
I am kind of open to ideas for what's next. So that's a good one.
That's a good one. And then you could sell, on the popularity of Better Call Saul, you could sell it
Yeah.
to publishers. You got to write it, though. I can't write shit like that. Okay, so you said that you actually did go to school for creative writing. You got a degree in creative writing?
Yeah, eventually I started NJIT to go for civil engineering. I failed out. Then I went to Seton Hall to be an artist, and I dropped out. And then Montclair State just kind of took me because they'll take anybody. At least they used to. I don't know what their deal is now. And I was doing good in writing classes, like basic composition and everything. So I just kind of followed that, and then eventually, yeah, I graduated with an English degree with a concentration in creative writing.
But you had no idea what to do with that, huh?
No, not even a little. We joked at graduation that like all the English majors were separated into the people who would have jobs. They were all had like their teacher certificates.
Yeah.
And then like the rest of us who just took creative writing because we didn't know what to do, we were all like, well, we're going to be unemployed or working at Blockbuster or whatever.
Do they not tell you what you can do with a creative writing degree?
They do not. It's a lot of like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, all I know is my one teacher told me I would never get anything published, and I kind of published things out of spite after that because I just did not appreciate that.
Was this before the advent of e-publishing that you got the degree?
Yeah, it was right at the start because there was another much more supportive professor of mine who first pointed me out to like a nonfiction magazine online because he was a nonfiction teacher, and so I was in that class writing nonfiction, but like as fairy tales, and like I would really fuck with the genre. And he loved it, so he's like, "Here are these other like websites you should try to look into, see if they'll publish it." Because yeah, at the time there was a lot of like mailing your manuscripts out and then getting written notes back saying you suck, no. So it was right at the dawn of the online literary stuff that was starting.
And did you? I guess you just jumped into that wholeheartedly. Like, at the time, I think some people were squeamish about it because, that vanity press, and there was a stigma to that.
Yeah.
And there were others who are like, no, this is an opportunity, and jumped in. And a lot of those people I know that jumped in early, especially like, there's a couple of zombie writers I know that like, they have, a career now as a writer just because they got in at that time when it just before it exploded, and they just rode the wave.
Yeah.
Because they weren't afraid, to be called like maybe you're doing vanity press.
Yeah. I mean, there was a good 5-6 years between graduation and Jersey Devil Press starting, and I will admit some of my earlier stuff is garbage. I mean, like I've seen it. I'm not surprised it got rejected now. But yeah, the press itself, I think I was kind of right. I don't know. I was a little like afraid of the vanity press. That's partly why, like I said, I created it to kind of hide that I was doing it myself. But at this point, I don't care. So yeah, I don't know. But it was just because like the one professor pointed it out that I was suddenly kind of paying more attention to it. in a way I don't think I would have had I, not known that. I had not seen it for another couple of years. It might have been different.
And was there novel writing classes involved with getting a creative writing degree, or is that like something different entirely?
Yeah, not specifically. I mean, there might have been a class, but I don't remember taking one. There, honestly, for the creative writing like specialization, it was just a handful of creative writing classes on top of the regular English stuff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a whole like the bulk of your studies was mostly regular English. Reading The Great Gatsby and Hawthorne and stuff like that. And then there were just a handful more that were a little bit less about regular composition and more like, all right, you should be, express your style, be yourself, do this, do that, like that kind of stuff. But it wasn't super involved, at least not at Montclair State.
It almost sounds like it's a liberal arts degree with a title to it.
A little bit, yeah. Like I said, a lot of us who graduated, Steve Swagler was another guy. He's the one I wrote Screw the Universe with, and we actually met at college. I think he'll agree with me that we just kind of fell into it, like we said, because we didn't know what else to do. And creative writing was like, we're here, we'll take you. We have no standards. Like, you seem pretty solid, let's do it. And so that's kind of how it ended up happening.
I always took when I went to college. I went to college up at William Patterson, by the way.
Okay.
And I always took the creative writing classes because I had fun with them, but I never. I wanted to get into it, but I was always like, what do I do with this? So I was wondering, like, oh, here's a guy who majors in it. Maybe he could tell me what that was all about. But apparently, even you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what the actual school's course was that like what we were supposed to be doing. I just know I had fun making up crazy shit, and people seemed to enjoy it. And so I was like, that's solid. I will do that until I graduate and can't make any money off of it. But in the meantime, I'm going to stick with that because it got me a girlfriend. It wasn't a terrible idea.
Do you think it serves your writing today?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I can't remember specific, like, you need to do this, not that, like lectures or anything like that. But I think whatever they told me at the time, I took in at the time, and it's definitely helped, mold my writing as I went on, yeah. Because if I hadn't have taken that, I don't know if I would have started writing, like, short stories, probably not, bizarro stuff, especially, and then tried to find it online. Like, if I had just been an English major and I wasn't encouraged to keep writing stuff, I don't know if I would have fallen into that quite as naturally.
Right. And did that sort of lead your initial run into more literary fare?
Yeah, I think so. Because that was, especially in the beginning, that was what there weren't a ton of online journals. And the ones I were finding, and they're even just regular, like, plowshares, like paperbacks and Tin House and stuff, like, that's all very literary, and that was what I happened to see and find at first. I don't know if there was anything else in the background I just missed, but yeah, that was my first introduction to it, and that's probably why that was, for the first few years what I was doing.
Yeah, I when I was taking classes like that in college, it was always... I always remember this one time we had to, pick a book, any book, and, write a paper on it. Give me a thesis, write a paper on it. And I'm like, well, I read every day. Let me see here. I haven't read Thinner by Stephen King. Let me do that. And the teacher said something along the lines of, you need to pick somebody with a little more literary clout. And I was like, oh, okay, I see. Stephen King doesn't have literary clout. Okay, I guess he has to be dead. So I'm like, all right. So I go back to the bookstore. I'm like, all right, horror. All right, we'll pick Dracula. That's an old book.
Yeah.
And I hated Dracula. It didn't do anything for me. And so I couldn't connect with it. I had a terrible time with the paper. And it was boring and just I couldn't get behind it. So I always shied away from, like, that literary type stuff, and I always love writing, and I always write these stupid little things for my friends and like these little funny pieces, but I didn't know what to do. It was just like, here, look, I wrote this funny thing, and I didn't think anybody could really connect with it. And then I see Bizarro, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like exactly what I've been writing, and there's like whole people like who've really like are totally creative and imaginative, and there's no rules. And I was like, oh, and that's really what made me want to, between that and everybody's now self-publishing, so it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where I jumped into it. But that literary stuff really turned me off from writing, and it took me a while to come back around and make myself do it.
Yeah. I mean, it was the exact same scenario when I was in school. Like, you need to pick a book, and I picked something, and they were like, no, it doesn't have enough, literary merit or whatever. And then like the girl I was seeing at the time said, you should read Vonnegut. And I was like, all right, let me see, and I brought in Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut, and the teacher's like, all right, fine, I guess there's enough literary merit there. And like that was it. Like I found like my way in. I felt like I was cheating the system, and it worked. And I read a lot of him, and I think that definitely influenced a lot of future writing as well. So I just happened to get lucky that I found the right book to kind of get in. Otherwise, I might have been, like you said, just sitting there, not really invested in it as much.
Yeah, I don't know why nobody ever suggested or led me toward Vonnegut while I was in college. I think I would have, had an experience like you, like, oh, I can get into this. But there was so very little that I was being forced to read, and when I didn't connect what I was being forced to read, I just disconnected. So,
oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I was supposed to have read, and I didn't. I would cheat. Like the internet barely existed at the time.
Yeah,
I was finding Cliff Notes online. I knew how to do it.
They always try to warn you, like, oh, I know every clip bullshit. I don't know how I got through college, but I didn't actually. Technically, I don't have a degree. I spent 4 years there. I just walked away. Stupid mistakes in your youth. Let's see, what else do I have here for you? Well, I wanted to ask you where you'd like to head now in your writing career. You sound a little unsure, actually. Do you have some sort of direction you'd like to go?
I don't know. Like I said, I definitely think I want to step away from the sci-fi part of it, whatever it is. Like that's fun, but I do just kind of take a break from it. So I don't know. And I've done the literary stuff before, so that's not super on my radar at the moment. But like, I've thought about the transplant, actually, bringing that back up. Like, I feel like I should do something with that, especially because all the current stuff that I haven't even read anything on. My wife reads a lot of books, though, that like other wives or guys who've had transplants write. And it's usually very sappy and like just kind of obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, if I can be kind of funny and angry and snarky about a lung transplant, I kind of feel like I should do that, but I also don't know where to even start with it almost. And I would just like to try something else entirely too. So I don't know.
That I think that sounds pretty interesting. Something sort of autobiographical, nonfiction related, but to have it be a narrative, maybe type of thing. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think something like that. That's part of what I'm doing, like why I'm not doing it at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how to sculpt that into a book, I guess.
Uh-huh. I think that would be really interesting.
All right, cool. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause, I mean, that's what a lot of people have said to me, and because I lived it, I kind of forget sometimes.
Right.
Like when you're so close to something, you just don't see it.
Right.
So I am like, you know what? That year I was living in California, that might be worth telling people about. Like, part of it's just grown up where you're like, no, I'm not that important. I'm like, yeah, still, it's a story that isn't really told that often, so it might be all right.
Yeah, and especially since you said the Cracked article you wrote about the transplant, like, affected so many people to reach out to you.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something there. That would be definitely something cool to explore.
Yeah, I think so. Because like I said, it's been long enough now that I'm not quite as on top of it, and so I don't want to forget too much either.
Right.
So I think this might be the time to do it.
I like that. That or a Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul.
Yeah, or the Better Call Saul Bizarro. Yeah, I could do that.
One of those two would be awesome. But, I think what I need to say is just keep doing what you're doing and try to get yourself out there more, because I really do enjoy what you do, and I would like more people to take a look at what you do, because I think you have the potential to become a lot bigger than you are. Maybe we'll get you up there with Dangerous later. I mean, that's brownie points in and of itself. Eirik Gumney, discovered Dangerous later.
Yeah, yeah. That was dumb luck, but yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
And you should be. I mean, like I said, that's an impressive thing to have that come across your desk.
Yeah.
And years later to see what he's become. That's awesome.
Oh
So
yeah,
now
it's incredible. 'Cause I mean, he might not really care that I'm sharing the story, but I'm going to do it anyway.
go
When
for
we
it.
first like met face to face, I'd published a few of his stories, and then he had been like, "Yo, I'm writing this book. You want to take a look at it?" So we met at a diner. He was so fucking nervous, man. He had spilled coffee on himself, like waiting for me. And but yeah, he gave me the book, and I was like, "Let's just fucking do this, man. Like we're going for it." And yeah, it's kind of nuts to see how he's putting out another book in July.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how he's doing this, but I'm gonna read them all. I've been reading them all. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's doing good. Have you given any consideration to maybe forming another press type of thing, another JDP, or jumping back into him, or is that really not where you want to be?
Yeah, I don't think that's where I want to be. I mean, when you're editing that stuff, you get so much crap come across your desk. And even the stuff that's good, like you kind of just, it wears you down. You're looking at the same stories over and over again. And if you're lucky, yeah, one will grab you and you don't mind reading it 12 times. But on the whole, I just don't think I'm cut out to be an editor. Mike, the guy who took over JDP after me, he was the same way. We would talk about it and bitch about it. And it's just not, I don't think that was for us, really.
I got you. So neither of you really are involved with them any longer? It's kind of third generation.
Yeah, not really. I mean, the website is technically in my name, but that's about as far as it goes.
Right.
Laura will send me an email every now and again if she's got a thought of something. And I do, obviously, my own books, I'm still sort of involved, but when they put out other books, I'll format them and proof them for them too.
Uh-huh.
Just because I know how to do that. That part of editing, I don't actually mind. The formatting a book, I do kind of like that.
Uh-huh.
But
just dig
yeah,
into
the
it.
actual reading of the stories and picking a story is not really my kind of thing.
So do you think JDP reflects what you set out for it to be like now? You think they are what they need to be, or would you like to see them get more into publishing books?
I mean, that's really up to Laura. On the one hand, yeah, the books we put out, aside from mine, I've really enjoyed. We put out Dangerous Book, obviously. There were a couple anthologies, one by Ryan Werner, which was just literary short fictions. They were all really good. I mean, I like those, but it takes a lot of time, and she just had a kid, so I don't know if she's gonna want to invest more time into like marketing books, because that's the biggest part of it. I feel like that's what the publisher needs to do. And that's just, I don't think that the current structure of JDP is built for that.
Right.
As far as what's actually online, yeah, I think it's exactly where it needs to be. They're doing better than they did when I was editing, because I would let a lot of stories in. We just didn't have as many to pick from because we weren't around very much. It was the first year it's out.
Yeah.
But since they've got like 5-6 years under their belt, shit, almost 7, they get more submissions now, and she can be a lot pickier, and so they get a lot of better stories that are exactly what the magazine kind of reflected.
Yeah, I always like to check out each month's magazine that comes out, see what's going on. And you're right, I didn't know what their submissions were, but it is a nice tight magazine that they put out month after month, and they can get themes now, and it's really a fun read.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I kind of stepped away as much as I did, because I'm like, you know what? They're doing this better than I did it. I don't want to fuck it up. Like, let's just, she's doing, whatever her and Sam and the others are, whatever they're doing it right. So I'm just going to let them keep doing it.
Excellent. And we have unfortunately come to the end of the show.
Aww.
I know. It's always so much fun, but, it's better to leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
than to want them getting you out the door. So I'm going to say, Eirik Gumney, thank you so much for coming on this week and talking to us, and especially since we had a lot of scheduling conflicts and the show got put off a few days. I appreciate your patience in the whole matter.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for inviting me. It was good. It was cool.
And it's been great getting to know you and what you do a lot better. Like I said, you've been on my radar forever. I've read a couple of things, but hopefully we can get more people reading your stuff, because it is really good. Go out and everybody check out Exponential Apocalypse. There's 4 books out now in the series. Is there going to be more?
There's going to be one more. I think I got to put a cap on it, but that might be a little while. I don't know.
Okay, so great. Pick up those series. I mean, it's just fun reading. It's like I said, it's like SNL skits, just back to back to back. Easy, fun reading. And check out everything else that Eirik does too, and maybe keep an eye out for that Breaking Bad book out there, Bizarro, coming from Eraserhead. Who knows?
Yeah.
So best of luck to you, and maybe we'll talk to you somewhere down the line when you find out, what you're really going to do in the future.
All right, cool. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, and have a good night.
You too.
Eirik Gumney, Zongers. There he is. The man, the myth, the legend. The man who brought Danger Slater to life. He is the Dr. Frankenstein of Bizarro Press in New Jersey. Great guy. Absolutely, if you can, check out his work. It's a lot of fun reading Eirik Gumney's stuff. Zongers, onwards and upwards we go. Don't forget, out there we still have that Patreon fund with lots of great stuff, and they're adding all this new stuff all the time. Give us $1. There's a rumor going around that if you're getting in for just $1, Brian Keene's going to give you a short story only available to Project iRadio Patreon supporters. So give us $1, get your Brian Keene short story. There's lots and lots of other great things being added all the time. We're really trying to kick up, giving you value for your hard-earned dollars. Project iRadio's Patreon account, patreon.com/Project iRadio. As always, you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Just search us at Bizzong Podcast on Twitter, facebook.com/Bizzong. We are there. Until next week with more great, bizarre, and weird fiction writers. You're free to go listen to these other great Project iRadio podcasts.
Buttercup of Doom on Project iRadio. I am your host, Kelly Owen. I'm just a girl who writes horror and thriller fiction, talks to bugs, jumps in puddles, and now hosts a weekly podcast full of opinions, advice, and a touch of gypsy wisdom, whether it's current affairs or social media nightmares. Join me, the Buttercup of Doom, Mondays on Project iRadio.
Armcast, Dead Sexy Horror Podcast, with host Armand Rosamilia, where he interviews horror authors, filmmakers, actors, actresses, that hot dog guy outside of Walmart, maybe even a Walmart greeter. Who knows? That's Armcast Podcast, exclusively on Project iRadio.